welcome to Economics Happy Hour. My name's Matt,
And I'm Jadrian.
and today it's kind of a special Economics Happy Hour for us recording. It's our first one ever in the AM hours, as we're both traveling. I'm in the midst of traveling, and it's easy to do this from a hotel in the morning, and Jadrian's about to travel. So I will ask, what is your morning drink today, Jadrian?
I do have a morning drink. I did not. I actually went out and purchased this because so actually I'll tell you a backstory before I get to this. One of our listeners commented and said, "Oh, it looks like you broke your Virginia beer streak," and I was so confused because we record them so far. We record them a
Yep.
couple weeks in advance, and I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I know which episodes you're on now." So I actually went out and I went to a special beer store that's on the other side of town that sells like individual bottles. So I usually go to Kroger and buy it out of the fridge section, but I actually
Yeah.
I have a pack for our next few interviews of just Virginia based beer. So I'm ready. Uh,
Nice.
but we switched this to the morning, and I told Matt I'd have a beer mosa, and then as I was prepping, I was like, I really do not want a beer at 7 o'clock in the morning. So I got my favorite coffee. I'll show you my coffee mugs, little Sam Houston coffee mug. I have hot coffee, and my addition of choice. I had this. I don't know if you've had this or not. You're a Delta person, right? You fly on Delta?
I have, but I
Okay.
wouldn't. I'm not a Delta person
Are
by
you
any
an
means.
American?
Yeah.
What's your airline of
I
choice?
actually don't really have one. The closest I'd have is probably Southwest.
Okay, maybe we should do an episode on frequent flyers and
Yeah,
clubs, and
sure.
there's a ton of econ in that. Um, so I'm a big Delta person, and since I have the credit card, I get to fly in Comfort, and you always get a free drink even in Comfort. Um,
Hmm.
Delta switched their coffee liqueur away. I think it used to be Kahlua. Now they use Buffalo Trace Distilleries has their version of Kahlua. It's a bourbon cream. So
Okay.
it has a nice little touch to it, but it's a coffee liqueur.
Okay.
It says you
Fancy.
could pour it over ice cream, but I'm not doing that.
Yeah. This morning I am simply doing a Coke Zero. They're nothing added except the caffeine. So
Well, Matt has big plans today, so let's talk. We talked about me last time. Let's start with you today. Are you comfortable sharing these plans, or these?
um I think so. Yeah, we're doing college tours. So the beginning of the college tour process. I won't say too much here, but checked out Ithaca yesterday and going to Syracuse today.
This is your
So
second round of college tours, right?
third
Third.
round,
Oh,
third round.
I
Yeah.
got second. Okay.
So we have two in college right now, and so this is round three. But I love the college. Like you,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I collect college visits or anything, but it's fun to visit a new campus, and the tours are, you get to see different things. And as a business school dean, I've actually learned stuff that I brought back
Yeah.
to to our school. For anybody who's been in Applebaum Hall, there's two TV screens as you enter on one side. I went to actually, and it was I think it was Ithaca many years ago, and they had three screens set up showing different things at the same time, and I was like, "Wow, that looks really good." And we
Yeah.
decided not for three, but two bigger ones, and every now and then you'll see something, and I'm like, "Oh, that's pretty cool how they do this thing." So,
Man, I was
but
prepping questions for you, and you answered each one. You're either a good dean or a good teacher, because I'm sitting here going, he's doing tours. I'm gonna ask him if he likes doing this as a dean, and then you answered
yeah,
it, and then you start doing. I go,
yeah.
okay, now I'm gonna ask him if he's ever brought anything back to Susquehanna, and then you did.
I'm a bad interviewee, is what it is. So,
Oh no, that's
so no,
great.
yeah,
You
no,
answered all my questions.
it's fun. So I had been to Ithaca before. I've never been to Syracuse, so
Mhm.
that'll be a new adventure here in about an hour and a half checking out. And it's a very different campus, which is
Yeah.
good to think through as if
Mhm.
you're approaching college. Is it you want to go to a bigger school, smaller school?
It's in an
And
interesting part of Syracuse because it's campus wise. I mean, it feels like a college campus. It feels very traditional campusy. I know that that's not super helpful to viewers. It feels like a college campus. But then like you're just a couple streets and you're like in Syracuse. Like
yeah,
it's much more. I don't want to say urban because it's not like in downtown Syracuse, but it loses its college feel very quickly once you sort of step off campus.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that's the way I would describe it.
I'm in the downtown area now, which is a
Mhm.
cool little downtown
Yeah.
area. And I can't tell you how
Okay.
collegey it feels. I'll tell you in 2 hours,
All right.
but no, it's pretty exciting.
Text
And
me and tell me.
and I know, Jadrian, you've got a baseball tour coming up here.
I'm trying to eke out as many of these little I don't want to call them leftover stadiums, but they are places that for whatever reason I skipped. When I lived in Pennsylvania, man, I hit almost everything. Like, so this is actually this is super pedantic. So my stadium tours are football stadiums. So I like college football, NFL, CFL. When it comes to college football, I only do Division One. I can't. There's already like 130 Division One teams. Like I can't tack on Division Two. So it's NFL, Division One college football. Actually, so no, as I said, there's 130. There's 130 in FBS. I do both FBS and FCS. So there's like 250 teams. Baseball stadiums, professional and minor league. I don't do college. So same sort of issue. There's already like 100 minor league baseball teams. And then I'll do soccer of any sort of professional level because there's not that many. So stadium wise in Pennsylvania, I've done every single NFL, Division One football, baseball, minor league baseball, soccer. I've missed one Major League Baseball stadium in Pennsylvania, so that's not on this list. Maybe it is. Maybe I'll surprise myself. And then I've done almost all of Delaware. I've done all of Delaware. I've done almost all of Maryland. I'm missing like one team in Maryland. In Virginia, I've done all of Virginia. I'm missing 2 teams in Virginia. Like I'm very close. So I'm trying to fill in some of this. So
very cool. Very cool.
So you might see some posts. Well, I guess if you're listening to this, you'll have seen posts and you'll wonder why I'm at this random stadium and there's only one post and not like people who follow me end up seeing like here's 6 stadiums that I go to.
Yep. Yeah. No, very cool. Very cool. And I like sports, major form of entertainment. Today, last time we spoke about books as a form of entertainment, what some books could teach about economics. Today, we're going to talk about movies, and each of us discussing one movie that we think is both entertaining and has a lot of economics content. What movie do you want to highlight today?
Well, given that you just heard me rant about sports, I'm going to stick with the sports and economics combination, which I don't know. In a sense, I feel like I'm almost taking a cop out that it's such an easy choice. But I am going to go with Moneyball for a couple different reasons. So I like the story, but I also like the economics. So those of you who have never seen Moneyball, which I think, I laugh. Sometimes I say those sorts of things, like even to my class, and I laugh a little bit. And I'm like, how have you not seen Moneyball? A lot of my students haven't seen Moneyball. It is, I don't want to say it's older. Moneyball came out in 2011, so it is over a decade old. So I teach a sports economics course, and I have a Moneyball project in there, which I could talk a little bit about too. And I was presenting it to my students, and even like the speakers were coming, and every speaker I would come would talk about, this is the Moneyball of soccer. We're doing the Moneyball of baseball. And they kept saying Moneyball, Moneyball, Moneyball. And I think for older academics, Moneyball we know what Moneyball is because we sort of lived through the actual like experience of the Oakland A's doing it. And then we saw the movie, which was so big. And, I'm just now realizing that my students were like 8 when this movie came out.
Yeah.
Like they don't remember this. They probably didn't watch it. So Moneyball is a book and I'm actually surprised we didn't talk about that as a book last time. It is a book and a movie about the Oakland A's and their sort of I should say the Oakland A's and Billy Beane, their general manager.
Yep.
Their transformation of the club of a small team that doesn't pay very much money to competing with the New York Yankees. So it's got this nice like David versus Goliath type story. But from the economic side of things, I really like it because it talks about this idea of like, what is a valuable player? And so like, I think there's a lot of really nice parallels to just like labor markets in general, which for better or worse, companies since that time have done. So you'll often see the Moneyball of airlines, the Moneyball of finance. But essentially, like, what does it mean to be a productive player? What does it mean to be a productive worker? And so you get to really sort of dig deep into marginal productivity, marginal revenue product. It's got some nice labor related stuff. So Matt, you've seen the movie, right? I actually probably should. Oh man, I should have started with that.
Yeah,
I
know absolutely. Yeah, I've seen the movie.
Oh,
a couple times. Have it on. Yeah, no, great movie. Fantastic.
Okay, I thought you shook your head. No, you've never seen it.
Oh no. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, I have seen it. No, fantastic movie. And I agree with you completely. It's really interesting, and I mean, it's the movie part. I'm sure it sensationalizes a little bit, but the idea of it gets at so much in there. It gets at there's a little bit of discrimination. The one pitcher is discussed at going to get a minimum contract despite that he throws funny.
Yeah.
The idea of how good are the experts at various things, and there are many fields where experts won't do as well. And in here, they're making fun of the experts versus just looking at this one particular metric.
So one of my favorite parts, so Matt and I are very big, like, pop culture. How can you use it in the classroom? It is very easy to find principles of economics topics. We can find here's an example of demand. Like, we can find that almost easily. So as a I don't want to say connoisseur, as a purveyor of pop culture and econ, I'm going to speak for Matt here. And I think I'm safe in saying this. When we see a topic that is not covered in anything else, we geek out harder than anything. Like, if I can find an example of like risk sharing, like if it's like one small example, Moneyball has an example of constrained optimization that is very, very good. So Billy Beane, right? So the Oakland A's don't pay very much money. Billy Beane goes to the owner and says, "Hey man, I need more money." And he goes, "We're not going to give you more money. You need to make decisions and be successful and reach your objectives given the budget that you have." And like he says it exactly like that sort of way. And so it's like this really neat example of like, you have these, especially when it comes to sports, they have this combination of they want to win, but they also need to they can't lose money, or they can't lose too much money, right? They need to have some profit. So they're not profit maximizers. They're not win maximizers. There's this trade-off of things that they want. But Billy Beane is told, like, you can only have this amount of money. So I love it because, like, I have no other clips of constrained optimization.
That's a really good point. I hadn't necessarily thought about that. And so constrained optimization, for the non-economists watching, right? We spend a lot of time on the idea of how do you maximize utility subject to the fact that you have a budget constraint. And you could sort out, there are optimal decisions that could be made. And for firms, you could try to minimize costs at a production level. So you have a constraint that you have to hit a certain level of production, but you have to, or getting to that production level, then how do you minimize the cost for a particular production level? And as grad students, we spend a lot of time on the analytics of that. Absolutely fantastic scene where he's going ahead and trading players and shifting salaries to other teams. Really,
and it all comes down, for him, it was already like get on bait. Like they identify like a metric that's successful. It was interesting because I used it in my sports econ class. I didn't have them. I will say I made a mistake. I did not have them watch it. When I taught sports econ for the very first time a decade ago, we watched it in class together. We had a movie night. It's like 2 hours. Like, we canceled class on 2 days, and we had like Wednesday night movie night. Because I think it's a 2-hour movie. And this time around, it's been 10 years since I've taught it, and I decided not to like schedule it out because I just assumed everybody had seen it. Like, I was like, I'm not gonna show it in class. Like, it's not new. And then so I assigned a Moneyball project, so we could talk a little bit about that because it's a fun project for the students. I assigned a Moneyball project, and they have to write a paper And like multiple people like in their paper talked about how they had never seen Moneyball, and it was neat. They've heard of it, but they've never seen it. And so it was
Yeah.
neat to be able to get to do what they did. And they talked about how like they went and watched the movie after doing
Yeah.
the project. And I'm sitting there going, you've never seen this movie? Like what? I feel like I've done a disservice. So the Moneyball project that I have them do, it's a great project. If you're any sort of a teacher at any, I don't want to say any level, because if you're teaching like middle school economics, maybe this isn't for you, but like at least high school economics and up, if you want a fun project, and I have heard, and this is for our high school teachers out there who are listening, after you do your testing, so this is, listen, I'm not a high school teacher, so if I say this wrong, I apologize now. But my understanding is after you're done with your testing, there's this weird, awkward period where you don't have things to do because like you still have school, but testing's over. If you need a cool project, this Moneyball project, completely open source, everything's online. Basically, what you have students do is you have them operate as Billy Bean, and they have to pick players. And so there's like full-on instructions that you can give the students. They collect data about their performance. You collect data about the teams, ticket prices, attendance. And so the idea is they're doing the Moneyball project. I have to pick players to help me win, to then generate money, because like, right, if they win, then they sell more tickets, things like that.
Yeah.
But what's neat is at the very end, there's a simulator that we put together fully online. You don't have to download anything. Your students, I have to be careful not to call them players. The students in the class act as GMs, and they can draft players. So they say, like, I'll take player 12. And so it's a matter of how much information you want to give them. Like I delete the names. I only give them the player numbers and the statistics and the salary. And so they have to pick players, and then it simulates a season. You can figure out like who the Moneyball champion is and stuff. It is a ton of fun. I assigned it in my sports econ class, but I've done it in my labor econ class. Dusty, my co-author, he's assigned it in his principles course. So you can do it. You really can do it at all levels. We've tried to set it up where you don't need intimate baseball knowledge about it. So moneyballsimulator.info, I believe, is that website. And all the instructions are online. Like we post everything online, but it's a ton of fun.
Very cool. A final thing I'll mention on Moneyball that I think is interesting, and I don't know that there will be any way to prove this, but I think Moneyball, the movie, because it's a movie, it's popular, and all sorts of people see it and understand it, helped accelerate the use of analytics in sports and accelerate the use of analytics for the viewing audience. So I was watching golf, I was watching the US Open, and if there's a 15-foot putt coming up, they'll mention the probability of making the putt on there. Like those things didn't used to be put on the screen. And I think these things have been accelerated a lot, in part because Moneyball made a lot of people understand, there's a huge aspect of analytics.
That is a great observation. I wonder if there's some way to actually I wonder if there's some way to do that like in news, like old newspaper articles, right? Like if you pull down a newspaper corpus and did like text analysis of like statistics discussions in sports sections. Right. Like that's the thing that I think is super, I don't say weird, interesting probably, is that sports has always been a very statistics heavy event, right? People are constantly regardless of the sport, right? Like in basketball, they're talking about free throw percentages and 3-point shots. And football, it's your passing accuracy. And like, even they had like quarterback ratings, like there's always been numbers behind it. But what makes the Moneyball story so interesting is essentially they were the people who'd been doing it for decades. And finally it trickled its way up to Major League Baseball. And they were like, maybe we're not looking at the right data. We're just looking at the wrong statistics, and we care about the wrong things. And so there's an argument that so I've seen a couple of these arguments before, is that focusing on Moneyball stuff is not worth it anymore, because the Oakland A's have done it, proven that it works, and now every other team already does it. Every team has analytics. So like you lose your edge really fast.
Yeah, no, I would think so, right? And once you discover some new invention that works, everybody's going to copy it. The efficiencies. but economists would say there's no, we say no barriers to entry, but I guess it's not really entry, but no barriers to using.
So it's a great movie. I don't know. We probably should have checked to see if this is streaming anywhere. I'll see if I can find it real fast as I'm doing it. So
you can watch it on Amazon.
Yeah,
actually, no, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong.
I think you can rent it. I think I own it off of Google, like Google Play. I think I bought it.
Sure.
I'm gonna guess I probably bought it 10 years ago, and it's still in my Google Play account. Every now and then it does pop up on Netflix. Like I have seen it. I have seen it on Netflix. At least a quick Google search as of June 28th, 2023. It looks like you can rent it from a bunch of places: YouTube, Apple TV, Amazon. If you have Hulu Premium subscription, you can watch it there. Or if you have Amazon Prime Premium subscription, you can watch it there. Yeah. So, it's $4 to rent it. If you've never seen it, definitely worth $4.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% agree. Well, I can share mine. I wouldn't call it. This is a movie I love. I wouldn't call it like one of my top 10 movies of all time or anything like that. And I think there's a couple things in economics it does really well, and one thing it does really, really poorly. And this is The Big Short.
Okay.
So
let me say I have never seen The Big Short. So this will be
okay.
I know of The Big Short. I've read The Big Short. This is also another book turned movie. I have read The Big Short. This is also by Michael Lewis. We both picked Michael Lewis. Stories.
He picks
good stories.
Picks books that end up doing well. So what I think is fantastic about this is the idea of explaining how some markets can operate and how financial markets can operate, and understanding a little bit about what it means to short. I mean, they go through the details of this, but the ideas of what it is, buying a stock, I think most people understand. Oh yeah, I have a piece of the company. It could go up in value. It could go down in value. Shorting a stock, and there's a number of ways. You're betting it will fall. If you basically are buying an option. So if you are shorting a stock, you are buying an option to sell the stock at a preset price that usually is lower than what it is now. It will be worthless if the stock doesn't fall. So you're paying the small amount. But if the stock falls considerably, you could make a ton of money. And so the other person's essentially collecting a little bit of money, assuming it won't fall too much. And there's ways you could incorporate, if it's in stocks, this is often a put option. You could incorporate that into a strategy that's risky, or there's a way you could really incorporate it where it's somewhat safe, or somewhat conservative. And it's a full different episode on how to incorporate options into things. And
I will say we need to invite a guest if we're having that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's not a
financial person.
But it does a really nice job, I think, of explaining that, the idea of that. I also think it does a great job. I mean, talking about things being 15 years ago, 2008 is now 15 years ago. And so, for students, I was teaching as we were going through this, right? And family members, students might be laid off. But now, students, if you get an incoming college freshman was 3, and a senior was 7, like their memory of this will be barely anything. This movie really does a nice job of going through the idea that we went through, of the financial crisis and a bit of what was caused by it. Yeah. And on top of that, right, you've got actors. Actually, you mentioned Michael Lewis. Both of these have Brad Pitt in them too. So another thing that's in common. Jeremy Strong plays a side role. He was the lead actor in Succession, or one of the lead actors in Succession. Steve Carell or Carell is in it. I'm sorry, from The Office. So that part's good. Those two things I think are fantastic, and it's really entertaining.
So let me interrupt you for. I just found this. I want to make sure I squeeze this in. As you said, entertaining. This is a good chance to squeeze this part in. What genre would you call this movie? Like, if you had to fit a genre, I'm gonna tell you what Google says this genre.
Well,
is.
I had Google open to see the actors, so it's
probably
spoiling. Yeah, I saw what it is, but for
Okay.
the audience, it says drama, comedy, drama.
Oh, that's not what mine says. Mine says
Oh,
financial thriller,
hmm.
which I'm looking at the book probably actually. Never mind, I'm looking at the book. The
Yeah,
book is listed
yeah.
as a financial thriller. So let me add a little adjective to Matt's praise of the book. So what do you dislike about the book? What part bothers
Or
you?
so, and I can't speak as much about the book, but for the
Or sorry,
movie,
the movie, yeah.
um, I think it does a couple things. What one key thing that I think it does wrong is it portrays the people who guessed the short right as geniuses.
Mm-hmm.
And it portrays it like everybody should have seen this
Mm-hmm.
coming. And I think that's so wildly inaccurate.
You know,
The
I
fact
would say
that,
that's true for Moneyball.
yeah,
Let's draw a parallel here. That is the same story of Moneyball. It is a how are you an idiot for not seeing this? It's
yeah,
so obvious that you're wrong. Like, no, that's a cool observation.
yeah. So, and I mean, they just hammer against, okay, the establishment screws this up and doesn't see this. And yeah, we knew prices were accelerating, but a lot, there's a lot of discussion. Can you see a bubble coming? And they're like, of course you could see a bubble coming. It's right there. And I've seen these underlying analytics. And, in hindsight, it looks like, oh, yeah, of course, we should have all seen that this was coming.
Mm-hmm.
But, a lot of the same people said we were in a stock market bubble in 2016. And what ended up happening, right? We have many years of growth, many years of growth in where the stock market
Mm-hmm.
was, or real estate values are too high again in 2017, and then it keeps going up a few percent each year.
Yeah.
And they're not as easy to observe as people think. That's one part of it. It's about observing the bubble, and that anybody should have seen it coming. And the other, that I think it gives the false impression that people generally can be smarter than the market,
Mm-hmm.
which in some ways is a bit of a dangerous thing beyond just this one example. Most financial experts don't just beat, an S&P 500. They say actively traded stock funds on average do worse than just putting your money into, a tracking fund of the S&P 500 or the whatever the, basket of 2000 stocks, and you just kind of leave it there.
You've helped me with
And
my pop culture clip, so I'm pulling it up so I can get ready
cool.
to tell you about it later.
So the idea of that idea, I actually think is a little bit, it's really wrong. And it's
Mm-hmm.
to the extent that it encourages kids to think, oh, I can be so much smarter than everybody, and I can gamble on this. And retirement
Yeah.
shouldn't be a gamble.
But that's so interesting. Like hearing you say that. So any of you who have seen Moneyball, you literally just went through the Moneyball story, right? Don't trust the established scouts. They don't know what they're doing. This is a revolution.
Yeah.
You need to gamble on me and this. Like it is I
Yeah.
never actually realized that these are the same story. And I don't know if this is a
I think
Michael Lewis thing. Maybe, right? Those are the. I mean,
it could be
he's
his
been
thing.
tagged with
Yeah.
the crypto guy, right? Like,
Yeah.
maybe that's why these are both just two really good movies, is that like it's the same story. You should be able to see this in hindsight. Look what's happened. And we hear these stories of like, this is the next Moneyball of blank.
Sure.
And so I wonder if it's that same sort of prediction. That's interesting. I'm going to have to think about this throughout
Yeah.
the day, that I had not realized.
That's a good. I hadn't made the connections between the two until you mentioned it. Yeah, I think, but you should watch it. I'd recommend.
Mhm.
It's good viewing. It is an entertaining, definitely an entertaining movie. Great acting.
Yeah.
Learn a few things, but there's some things that I'm concerned about. So
So
I know we.
yeah,
Oh,
I would
go
say
ahead.
when you mentioned we should have seen it coming part, I had a nice flashback. I graduated with my undergraduate degree in business, right? So I was a business major, management and economics major. I graduated in 2009.
Okay.
And so I can tell you, and I don't, maybe this is a difference from a college perspective versus, right. You were not in, you were in grad school then, right?
No, I was out. I'd been out for a while.
When did you get your PhD?
I graduated 98 for undergrad, PhD in 2002. So.
Okay. One day I'm going to learn how old you are. Oh, happy birthday, by the way. Probably should have told you that.
Thank you.
For those of you listening later, Matt's birthday was weeks ago. You've already missed it. It's too late. Don't tell him happy birthday.
That is true. That is
You're
true.
weeks late. So I'll say it this way. I don't know, I'll call you a full adult, even though I was an adult too. I didn't know what was going on. Like I was oblivious. I mean, I'm graduating in 2009. I didn't understand why aren't companies in offering, there's like 3 internships that I could have applied for. I'm right outside of Houston.
Yeah.
I mean, I got the offers because like I was a strong student. Didn't click. I didn't get it. My professors were giving talks about housing bubbles and stuff. And I was like, my parents' house is fine. Like I didn't make the connection of like how it's interesting, like in hindsight, to like live through that. As somebody, especially who was studying economics, wanted to be I wanted to be a business student. I was getting an MBA. I have no recollection of what was going on. I was not unemployed. I had a job. My friends were not unemployed. Like I didn't see the big unemployment rates. I worked as a waiter, which if you think about, especially during a recession, right? Like dining out is something that's going to drop really fast. You're going to cut back on dining out. I didn't see that in my job. And Houston was much more protected than other places. So I should say part of that is Houston did much better during the Great Recession than a lot of other places. But I didn't feel like my friends were losing their jobs. I didn't feel like my income was going down from serving. I didn't know anybody who lost their house. Like all of my friends and family, I never saw it. And so it's one of those, I think like 5 years out, like once I'm in grad school and I'm like seeing all the data about what had happened, I'm like, I completely missed it. Like the recession essentially didn't happen in my little bubble, which is so interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I knew what was happening. I was at the job. It was, a professor job. I was tenure track at the time, but it wasn't.
Every seminar speaker is coming through is talking about housing markets.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remembered that during grad school, like every single job market
everybody was talking about it
was housing markets.
But no, so it was, it was interesting times, hearing about all that and, or watching it all happen. So what, we have a special piece of scholarship, I know, that Jadrian's going to highlight today. Yes. That's related to our topic of movies.
And it is one of our one and only former guests as a co-author on it. We talked about how great that was, and then we haven't had anybody else on. So
but we've got special stuff coming up.
So we got special stuff coming up. So you might hear some other voices soon. So way back, many moons ago in 2016. Some friends of ours, Dirk Patier, Brian O'Rourke, who you have heard previously on this show, and Kim Holder, went out and surveyed a bunch of economists. So this is actually where I got the inspiration from the book part. So I was glad that we kind of teamed these together in back-to-back episodes. They went out and surveyed 105 educators about what their top movies are to teach economics. They compile everyone's answers. They do it, if I remember correctly, so I don't want to mess this up too much. What they did was they basically did it sort of like the Heisman. So like if you put whatever your number 1 choice was, you got more points than your number 10 point. So that's how they came up with the point system. And then they compiled it all together and they published an article called The 10 Greatest Films for Teaching Economics. It is published in the American Economist back in 2016. So they have actually the entire list. So we'll go through the top 10. And then if you are curious, they do have an entire list, and I'm scrolling down to see it, tied for 50, but basically like half the list is tied. More than half the list is tied for 50.
Okay.
Like it's a lot. So it's every sort of, I'll say, random parts. And I think as an educator, one of the fun parts of this actually is to see a movie. And maybe Matt, I'll do that to you. I'll give you a couple of these movies, and you tell me how you think you could teach economics with it.
Okay, sure. Because
there's a lot
through
of
the list.
Yeah. So let me give you the top 10 for our listeners. So scroll back up. It's all in different spots. Number 1, It's a Wonderful Life, 1946. Had 13% of the voters put it as number 1. It's a Wonderful Life, fantastic movie about bank runs. Unfortunately, we saw that earlier this year. So I think It's a Wonderful Life came back for a lot of people.
Yep.
Number 2, very close, right behind is one we've talked about before, A Beautiful Mind, the story of John Nash, and just his life. Number 3, Moneyball. So I got the number 3 pick. I picked an easy one. I would have picked It's a Wonderful Life, but it's been so long since I've seen it, and I'm not a macro person, so I don't want to talk too much about it. So the one that got, actually, I messed this up as I was reading their table. I read absolute votes. That wasn't a correct way to read. Absolute votes just means, was it in their list? The movie that got the most first place votes, actually had 5 first place votes, is Wall Street, 1987.
Oh, okay.
I've never seen it.
It's been a long time since I've seen it, but it was an interesting there's some corporate takeover stuff in there, and that's got the famous "Greed is good." Okay. "Greed is good" speech by Gordon Gekko. But it's been literally probably, I bet it's been over 20 years since I've seen it. I should watch it again.
I've never seen it. Or maybe that should be for our high school teacher out there, maybe they should have a movie theme and just watch each one. Trading Places, number 5, 1983.
Fantastic. You've seen that one, right?
No, I don't think so.
So that's where I think the age difference makes a little bit, like when I would be, 10 or 11 or 12 and renting movies, right? That was out and fantastic.
I have seen it, but it has, like you said, it's maybe been 15, 20 years ago.
Speaking of, The Big Short, this is one that talked about, options trading in commodities markets. And they don't explain it all that well, but the idea how you could short, how you could bet on whether something would go up or down in value significantly was pretty interesting there.
Those of you with kids, you can watch The Lorax. That comes in at number 7. So I think they talk about that. I think they use it to talk about environmental economics. So I should actually say these top 10 lists. Dirk, Brian, and Kim also give a little summary of each one to talk about like what's the connection and stuff like that. So don't feel like you have to also watch it to catch it. Tied for number 7, The Lorax, and then the other one is Hudsucker Proxy, which has the great story of the hula hoop and selling the hula hoop, which I've never seen the movie. I just know that scene.
I know the clip. I've actually shown the clip in class without seeing the movie, because I think that clip is fantastic in terms of demand increasing and decreasing. For those who watch, we can try to link to the clip on here for those watching or in the show notes. But the hula hoop, you literally see them changing the sticker prices on the window in terms of when the demand falls and then when the demand increases.
Number 9, Castaway.
Okay. So living alone on an island, right?
So it's got so those of you who, you may do this in your early days of teaching principles, the Robinson Crusoe. If you had to live alone, absolute advantage, wouldn't it be better if you had somebody there to help you, comparative advantage type story.
Trade with.
And then number 10, Big Short was not on here because it's after. So The Wolf of Wall Street. So you were close on the similar. I think those are very, very similar stories. I'm going to quiz you on a couple of these later. I will say I'm going to throw out ones that I really like, just as a brief recommendation. The Informant, super fascinating. Great book, also book turned movie. It is a story of collusion in it's some sort of weird Japanese. It's a Japanese American collusion over a chemical. Do you remember what the chemical is? It's a famous chemical.
I want to say I don't remember the chemical. Was it ADP or what was the company?
Yeah, ADM.
ADM
is the company.
Archer Daniels Midland, I believe, was the company. Matt Damon. It was really interesting movie, and a little bit on collusion in there, and
lysine.
And
you learn a lot about lysine. It's a good movie. I would throw that out there as like that was one of my close ones. But it's been a long time since I've seen it. It's a really good movie. Do you have any like a last minute, if people didn't like Michael Lewis? Okay, Matt, I'm going to pick. So we have just a couple minutes and then we can share our pop culture. I'm going to throw a couple of these out here. I will say Star Wars is on here, tied for 50 with 30 other movies that are tied for 50.
We have the Economics of Star Wars site that has a whole host of clips from all of the different episodes or all of the different movies.
West Side Story is down here. Okay. I would like you to tell me how you can use, they spelled that wrong. Um, there's Hot Tub Time Machine on here. I think people were just picking clips from some of these. There's no way that they
I'm
intended
sure.
the whole movie. Toy Story. Toy Story is tied. It's also tied for 50. So I'm guessing these are people that got like one person put Toy Story down.
I've never thought about how to use economics in Toy Story. I mean, you could stretch, and when you've written a book, you wrote a book on Parks and Rec, and I've done Broadway and econ, and yeah, there's a fine line on like how far do I stretch any song. Like when I picked a song, I'm like, yeah, you could stretch anything. Okay, they say these two words.
That's
preferences. No, yeah.
That goes back to what we said earlier, right? I can pick almost any principles concept, demand shifts, preferences, trade-offs, marginal analysis, right? I can pick those easy.
You do. So off the top of my head, I mean, I could come up with stuff, right? Like there's the value of, you could come up with a value or preference stuff, or,
my first thought was trade-offs. I was going with trade-offs, right? Because it's, Andy's got to play with toys. He's got to figure out which toy he wants to play with at any moment. Playing with one toy means you can't play with another toy. Maybe you got some opportunity costs there, right? So some of the toys are left behind. They have a low opportunity cost. I don't know. That's the best I'm coming up with.
Yeah, going to the arcade and putting money in the machines, and which video games do you play, and once again, trade-offs, preferences. Maybe there's some working together and comparative advantage stuff, right? I think it's anything I come up with is a pretty big stretch.
Let's put this out to listeners and viewers out there. If you've got a toy, if you are using Toy Story in your classroom, maybe it's a clip. I don't even think I have a.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to hear about it from our viewers.
Yeah, I have like 600 videos on this website. I don't think I have a Toy Story clip. I don't.
I'd love to hear it.
If you are a listener or a viewer on YouTube, please in the comments or email us or on Substack, however you need to contact us, please contact us and tell us how you are using Toy Story. And I want to be careful. We're not saying this because like we think it's dumb. We want to know. We like genuinely I want to use it.
Everybody today still knows and loves Toy Story.
I love Toy Story.
If a good clip from Toy Story, which you could tell us what the clip is, and we can do the clip. Yep. We could create the clip. That could be a real good contribution. So please let us know.
Yes, please. Pop culture. You want to go first? You want me to go first?
You can go first, and then I'll try to figure out what to talk about.
Okay, so you mentioned this earlier when you were talking about The Big Short, and this is perfect. My mind immediately flashed to this idea of predicting the future. This is a commercial that came out in 2012, right? So shortly after the Great Recession, which I think is very well timed. Actually, you know what I'm going to say? I don't think this is on my website either, which means I need to get this on my website. Ally Bank did a commercial, very short, like, I don't even think it was 30 seconds. It feels like it was shorter than that. But they are basically sitting on a stage. There's a man in a chair. That man is Nobel Prize winner Thomas Sargent, who is famous in financial macro space, stuff like that. So he's sitting on the chair just waiting. A moderator comes out and basically says, we have Nobel Prize winning Thomas Sargent here with us today. Dr. Sargent, can you tell us what CD rates are going to be like in the next 2 years, right? So it's a bank, trying to predict the future. And he just sort of turns his head and goes, no. And that's the end. And the lights come down. And then the rest of it is basically like, if Nobel Prize winning economist Thomas Sargent can't tell you what CD rates are going to be in 2 years, you'll need an ally. Ally Bank has raise your rate CD. So they're selling a product. But it's a great sort of like what I would say is a true economic answer. This goes back to what Matt said earlier. Often you get famous for making bold predictions, especially ones that are negative, right? Like, we're going to have another housing bubble.
Yeah.
And if you're wrong, everyone forgets that you said it, right? You probably don't remember the person who said we're in the middle of a housing bubble. You can still be famous and nobody really cares. If you said something like this, if you're like, no, I don't know what's going on, nobody's going to remember you. You're not going to get invited to stuff. So I really like that commercial as like a really great opportunity to say, like, it's fine. We don't know. It's perfectly okay.
Ally Bank, why they have a raise your rate CD.
Tonight, our guest,
Thomas Sargent, Nobel laureate in economics and one of the most cited economists in the world. Professor Sargent, can you tell me what CD rates will be in 2 years?
No.
If he can't, no one can. That's why Ally has a raise your rate CD. Ally Bank. Your money needs an ally.
But it's great little clip to talk about that.
Yeah. I'll go. Since we spoke about Star Wars a little bit, I'll go with a clip from The Mandalorian, which isn't a movie, I guess, but the Star Wars series. And we talked a little bit about how Moneyball, and there's an aspect of discrimination, but there's a scene, and this is on Economics of Star Wars, and we can link to it. But Mando does not want a droid driver. So he is actually discriminating against droids and is essentially willing to pay a premium to get poor service in order to be with a non-droid driver.
You've used this clip before. This is not a new clip. You've used this one.
What?
I'm remembering this. Yeah. We did a discrimination.
Yeah. Okay.
Matt's gonna have to go back to his notes.
So I've got to come up with a different one from Star Wars. This is crazy. So
as you were describing, I was like, this sounds so familiar.
Yeah,
I wonder if I heard this before.
No, from me.
You have heard this on our podcast.
Yeah. So
Matt, we talked about it when we'll flash back as you search. I'll just fill in some time for you. We talked about this.
We'll do that in there.
Back in episode number 11, when we talked about your favorite topics,
discrimination,
poverty, inequality, and discrimination. So I'll summarize. Matt's
that was the
clip.
one there. So we'll put that clip in, and then I'll go to a simpler one, right, from Star Wars. Well, we can put that clip in the description too. But the from the original, and this is from the movie. By the way, there's of course spoilers in this. If you haven't seen Star Wars yet,
mute for a couple
you may
minutes.
want to stop right now. But in the opening one, Luke is not going to go to Alderaan because he's got his whole life on Tatooine. But then all of a sudden, his aunt and uncle are killed, and once that happens, all of a sudden the issue of the trade-off, like essentially this is a good example of what's the opportunity cost of leaving and what are the trade-offs Luke faced. And it's kind of a tragic way to have that happen. But the trade-offs were far easier to swallow. The opportunity costs for Luke were far lower, and wants to end up going and leaving with Ben Kenobi, as he's called at the time, to go do his training. So simple one. You get two for the price of one and one repeat. So, but they say in order to teach something, and you got to mention something 7 times before people learn it. So this is the second. I'll try to see how many times I can work things in, and Jadrian won't remember. You're gonna say which ones he won't remember.
Discrimination comes up or labor marks. You're gonna go. There's this great clip from The Mandalorian.
Yeah. The funny part is there's like 3 others on the website I could have used from discrimination, and I just picked that one again. It's a good clip, I guess.
It's a good clip. Hey, listen, if Matt's going to tell it to you twice, we've only done like 15 episodes. That clip is like 20% of Matt's recommendations.
20%.
Well, 15%. It's 15% of your recommendations or something like that. That means it's got to be a good clip, right? If you've already.
It's a very good clip. So.
All right, Matt. Well, enjoy college touring.
And enjoy baseball. And I hope you had a delicious drink. I need more caffeine.
I'm close. I'm going slow. I put 1 ounce in. I'm not going too crazy.
That's good.
And then the future coffees will be regular coffees.
So thank you to everybody for listening. Please leave a 5-star rating and a review. Reviews are valuable. It helps other people find the podcast. And until the next time, cheers.
Cheers, Matt.